Hello guys, welcome to another video of Microsoft Azure. In today's video, we are going to discuss about Azure Service Fabric. We will understand what is Azure Service Fabric and we'll set up a Azure Service Fabric in Azure and we'll see how we can set that up and we'll see all the properties of Fabric clusters. Okay, so let's begin the video. Here I am in official Azure documentation. You can see here the definition of Azure Service Fabric along with other details, what are the advantages and where we can use it. So if you see at the top, it is saying like Azure Service Fabric is distributed system platform that makes it easy to package, deploy and manage scalable and reliable microservices and containers. So basically, this is a platform in Microsoft Azure to deploy your microservices or containers, or you can say you can even say something like this is a core container orchestration platform. Okay, so if you have microservices or some complex application to deploy, you can always use Azure Service Fabric to deploy your application. This way, your application will be highly available and you can achieve rolling back features and other features as well of the deployments so that your application will not be any downtime. Okay, so here is the Azure Service Fabric. You can see the advantages: lifecycle management, always on availability, orchestration, programming models, health and monitoring, DevOps. You can integrate this with Azure Pipelines, Jenkins, and other CI/CD tools, and even auto scaling. Okay. Along with this, you can set up this Service Fabric clusters in Azure, on premises, and other clouds as well. Okay. Here you can achieve container orchestration. You can deploy your containers and manage microservices in Service Fabric clusters. You can even deploy stateless and stateful microservices. You can deploy both of them in Azure Service Fabric. Okay, you can integrate this Azure Service Fabric with any CI/CD tools like Azure Pipelines, Jenkins, and any others. Okay, so now let's go to Azure portal and try to create Azure Service Fabric, and we'll see how we can set up it. Even here, if you see you can see the details about Service Fabric. Okay, like what we just seen. If you click on home and type Service Fabric here, you will see the Service Fabric clusters inside services. Okay, so if you select Service Fabric clusters and click on add, you will get the two options. One is Service Fabric cluster and one is Service Fabric managed cluster. So if you don't know the difference, there is a minor difference between them. If you are creating Service Fabric cluster, you will have to manage everything. You will have to create load balance and rules and all virtual machines, nodes, virtual machine scale sets, and everything you will have to create it by yourself and manage all the things. But if you are creating Service Fabric managed cluster, which is also recommended by Azure, Azure will manage all those things and you don't have to worry about them. So now let's create the Service Fabric managed cluster. If you click on add and select Service Fabric managed cluster, you'll get this screen to set up the cluster. Okay. Now, if you see here in basics, you can also see the definitions of the cluster. You can create multiple nodes inside them. You will have multiple nodes which which are nothing but virtual machine scale sets, or you can say also the virtual machines. Your applications will be hosted inside those virtual machines, and basically replicas will be created of your application in multiple virtual machines so that your application will be highly available. Even if one virtual machine or something goes down or one of the nodes go down, your application will still be available in another node. Okay, so this way service fabric cluster achieves high availability for your application. Okay, now let's come here in basic detail, select the subscription and resource group. So this is my resource group and this is my cluster name. You can provide the cluster name as per your naming convention. So I'll provide this. This is my cluster name, and you can select the region as well. You can now select the SKU. If you click on details, you can see the definition of the SKU as well. You can select basic or advanced. If you are selecting basic, generally for development or test environment, you can select basic, but for production or any other environment where you need high availability or something like this, you should be selecting a standard one. Okay. Now, so let's select the basic one for now, and I will select the standard as well and show you what are the things we get here. Let me create the basic one. Okay. So now I have selected the basic, and you can see if you want to enable automatic OS upgrades, you can enable it or you can disable it. If you are disabling it, you will have to upgrade the machines VMs by yourself. Okay, if you are selected it, then Azure will take care of it. You will have to provide the administrator account. With this account, you will be able to connect with your service fabric cluster. So let's provide a username and password. This is my username and password. And here you will have to select the primary node type. What should be the OS image and what should be the node size, data disk size, and how many nodes you want in your cluster. Okay, you can see about the primary node type here as well. Node type defines group of nodes that is nothing but virtual machines that will be used to run your clusters application. Okay, your service fabric cluster can consist of more than one node type, in which case one of the node types will be the primary and other node types will be secondary. Okay, now let's select the OS image. What OS image you want? You can select Windows. So let's select this, and you can select the node size as well based on your requirement. If your application is complex or need a high uh, CPU or high memory of virtual machines, you can select the node size or your virtual machine size from here in the node size. Okay, node is nothing but a virtual machine. Even you can say how you have seen nodes in a Kubernetes, that is nothing but a virtual machine. Here, even in service fabric clusters, a node is nothing but a virtual machine. Okay, now data disk size, you can select how much data disk you want, like 256 GB or whatever, let it be the default. And here is the node count, how many nodes you want. Choose the number of nodes to create within your primary node type. You will be able to change this number later to scale up or scale down the number of nodes in the node type. So if you have something, some production clusters, you can always increase it. This is our basic. So we have selected as 3. If you are selecting standard here, by default you will get the 6 node count. You cannot decrease less than that. Okay, so since we are creating the bronze, we will be getting as 3. You can select the authentication method, how you want to connect to your service fabric cluster. Generally, if you want to access your service fabric cluster, you will have to provide one thumbprint or a key vault certificate. With only that certificate, you will be able to connect to your cluster. Okay, so let's select the certificate store as key vault, and you can also select thumbprint, but now let's select the key vault for now and click on select a certificate. So you should be creating a certificate in your key vault, and you can use that if that is your, but if that certificate is from trusted certificate authority, that is fine. Otherwise, if you are creating this for demo, you can create a self-signed certificate as well. I don't have any key vault, so let's create the key vault. So this is my key vault. Give something some name like this. Okay, and let's select the region as Central US and keep everything as default. In Access Networking, make sure you have enabled this Azure Virtual Machines for deployment. You can deploy other things as well. You can enable Azure Resource Manager for the template deployment if you want, but make sure this Azure Virtual Machine for deployment is enabled. Then only your Service Fabric clusters or nodes in your cluster will be able to reach this key vault. Okay, here in networking, let it be selected from all networks and review and create. So this will create a key vault, and inside this key vault we will generate a self-signed certificate, and we will use that self-signed certificate to log into the Service Fabric clusters. Let it create. Let's wait for the certificate to be created. Once this is created, we will generate a certificate in that as well. Deployment is in progress. You can also authenticate with certificate thumbprint. For that, you will have to attach the certificate thumbprint in there by selecting the thumbprint option in the certificate while creating your Service Fabric clusters. Okay, my resource has been created. So this has been created, and now create a new certificate. Since I don't have any certificate, let's create the new certificate. Give any certificate name, something like this. Self-signed certificate. You can add the DNS names from here if you want. Okay, and keep everything as default. Now you can just create this certificate. There seems to be some error. Let me first go to my key vault and add the permissions. So this is my key vault. Go to setting, access configuration. You see, I am in my key vault and I have created a self-signed certificate. If you go here in the certificates, and here I can see this is my certificate. I have created it. Let's download this certificate, so that we will have to use this certificate to connect to the service fabric cluster later once we have created it. Okay, so this is now completed. You can also install it. So let me quickly install it. Click on next. Okay, so my certificate has been installed. Initially, I was getting issues while creating the certificates. Once I have added the access policies, and here I have added my name, and the issues was sorted. Okay, now let's go to Service Fabric clusters and create the cluster again. We have already discussed all these things, so let's just skip it. I'll provide the cluster name, region, basic, username, password. This is the selected one. OS image is selected. I will now select the key vault certificate. So this is my key vault. Okay, and here I will select the certificate. So once I have selected my key vault, you can see the certificate to select is coming here. This is my certificate thumbprint. Now click on select. Okay, if you want to enable Azure Active Directory, you can enable it. We'll have to give all the details like tenant ID, everything. If you just want to connect the cluster locally, you can disable it for now. So let's keep this as default. Click on next. Here you will have to select the node types. Since we are creating the basic one, you cannot add the additional node types here. If you are selecting the standard SKU, you can also add new different node types here. Okay, so here you can see this is my primary node type, OS image, disk size, node count. 3 nodes will be created inside this, and this is my virtual machine size. Okay, if you need different nodes as well, generally you need that for productions. You will have to select the standard one. Once you selected standard, you will get an option to add the new node types here in the node type section. Okay, now let's go to networking. Here you will have to configure the networking for your service fabric clusters. Okay, and you can also configure the load balancing rule, like what should be the front end port, back end port, and which protocol you want to connect with. If you see, open specific ports on your managed load balancer for inbound traffic from the internet. A probe and an NSG rule with default priority will automatically be created for the specific port mapping. So suppose you want to enable 443 port or some backend port using that you want to connect with, you will have to add that, or else you can keep this as default. Let's delete this. Okay, let's keep this as default. Keep only client connection port and HTTP gateway port. If you need more details of it, you can select the specify the port that should be used when connecting to the cluster. So that is nothing but client connection port. And if you click on this, specify the port that should be used by the Service Fabric Explorer to visualize specification and cluster status. So this 19,000 port will be used to connect your Service Fabric cluster, and this port should be used to connect to your Service Fabric Explorer. That is nothing but the detail, you can say the Explorer of Service Fabric. Now select the advanced. Here you will have to select the Fabric version. If you want to select it, you can see set how quickly your cluster updates to the latest Service Fabric runtime version. You can choose between the three waves from wave 0 occurring first, wave 2 which occurs last. So if you select wave 0, whenever update is there, your Service Fabric cluster will be updated. If you have some production, you should be selecting wave 1 or wave 2. If you are doing it for test, you can keep the default one. Okay. You can create up the DNS service as well, and you can enable backup and restore service as well for your Service Fabric cluster. Let's keep this as default. And if you want to add some additional fabric setting, you can do it from here. Okay, like naming service. These are some of the parameters which might be your requirement for your organization. Based on that, you can always create these custom fabric settings. Now let's go to next. You can add the tags as per your requirement and click on review plus create. This will run the final validation. If all the uh, attributes which you have given are correct, then it will give you an option to create the cluster. Okay, so validation has passed. Now let me click on create. So this will create the Service Fabric cluster. This will take generally time, few minutes. Once this is created, again we will come back. Okay, so our deployment is completed. If you expand deployment details, you will see this is the Service Fabric cluster. This is successful, and this is the node which we had created inside our Service Fabric cluster. Okay, now let's go to resource, and now see this is my Service Fabric cluster. You can see all the details here. What is SKU, what is my cluster version, and FQDN along with other details. If you have to connect to your Service Fabric cluster, you can use this FQDN or SF Explorer URL. You will see all the properties here about your cluster. Here networking, fabric upgrades, and other things as well. How many nodes are there, everything you can see here. If you have to manage something, activity log, access control, you can do it from here. Here in settings, you can see all other things as well, like node types. If you go to node types, you will see how many node types you have created, like primary or any other additional node type. And here in the nodes, you can see how many nodes you are in your cluster are having. So we are having three nodes. You can see the node type and their health as well. If something happens, then you can even restart that node as well. You can always click on this node type and you can edit this node type as well. Okay, and if you click on this node, you can see all the details about this node as well. Okay, if you have to restart it or you have to do something for this node or this node is not responding, you can always come here and restart the node from here. Okay, here you can see your applications inside the service fabric cluster. If you have deployed your applications or microservices, you will see everything here inside the applications tab. You can manage your networking, cluster networking from here. Let it load. Okay, so if you want to create some load balancing rules, which we are doing while creating these details, like if you want to enable some rules, you can do it. If you want to enable NSG inbound rules or outbound rules, you can add those things from here. Okay, here in security, you can add any thumbprint or add any other certificate if you want to authenticate using that with to this service fabric cluster. If you want to enable active directory, you can do it. If you have to upgrade your service fabric cluster, you can change this upgrade way from here. Okay, you can add custom fabric settings which we have already seen while creating the service fabric cluster. If you need to add some add-on services, you can do it from here, like enable DNS service, enable backup and restore service. You can see the properties of the service fabric cluster from here, like what is the state, DNS name, cluster ID, resource group, location name, and other things. If you have to automate it, you can also create service fabric clusters either with ARM templates, Azure Bicep, and even Terraform as well. But if you have to create with ARM template or Azure Bicep, you can export the template to ARM template and later you can convert the ARM template to Azure Bicep and use the template to create Azure Service Fabric clusters with automation from your pipeline or from your local. Okay, now let's go to overview and open the Service Fabric Explorer. You can do it from here as well. Click on this Explorer tab or you can click on this URL which you can see here. Once you clicked it, your Service Fabric cluster will be loaded. Okay. If you are doing it for the first time, then you will have to, once you open this URL, you will have to select your certificate, the ones which we have already installed it. So you will have to create one certificate which we have already done it. We had installed that certificate. Whenever you click on this URL, you will have to select that certificate. Then only this screen will be coming, else you will not get this screen. If certificate is wrong, then also you will not be able to connect to the Service Fabric Explorer. Okay, so this is my Service Fabric Explorer. You can see all the things here, details about the cluster, other things like code version, fault domains, upgrade domains, health of the node, health of the partitions, applications, services, replicas, and other things. If some automation job is in progress or application upgrade is in progress, you can see all everything from here. Okay, in the essentials. If you expand the details, you can see the details about your cluster, all the node states, load information. You can see all the details which is related to your cluster here. Okay, upgrade mode, upgrade state, and everything. You can see the metrics. Okay, you can see the cluster maps as well, image store, manifest. This manifest file is necessary. If you have to do something with this manifest file, then you can change it so that your whole cluster will be changed if you change this manifest file. Okay, you can see commands and events, all the things from here, like what are the things you have done with this cluster when the upgrades was in progress, when nodes were down, everything you can see from here in this tab. Okay, you can see other things as well about cluster and nodes, like cluster upgrade completed, cluster upgrade domain completed, about nodes. If some repair task has been running, you can see all the things from here. Okay, here if you click on this option, you have advanced mode to enable it. You can enable it, then you will get some more options as well. If you have some bug, you can always open the ticket with Azure from here. If you come here at the left side, if you expand the applications, you can see all the applications which you have here in the Explorer. You can delete your applications, you can do something else. You can see how many nodes your applications are using and how many nodes your application is available on. Okay, you can see all the things from here. Since we don't have any applications, we are getting nothing in the applications section. Okay, here if you expand the nodes, you will see all the nodes here. Node type, this is seed node. If you have to restart or do something else, you can restart your node from here, restart, deactivate. Okay, or if you want to remove that. So generally we need to restart if some issue is there, some applications are not working properly. If you restart your node, uh, they will go away. Okay, if you have your applications hosted, you will see all the applications, like in this node how many applications are running, in this node which are all the applications running. In all the nodes, some of the applications will be running. You can see details about them here if you expand them. Okay, if you select one node, you can see the details about your node here as well, replica count and other things. Deployed applications, you will see here, healthy evaluations, you will see all the details here. If you have some of the applications, you can see here. Here in details, you will see the details about this node. Okay, once a node is done, you can expand the system. So these are some of the services which are necessary to be running for your Service Fabric Explorer or cluster. Okay, if any of them is down, your cluster health will be either in warning state or in error state. So make sure all these are running successfully. Okay, like cluster manager service, DNS service, event store service, image store service, naming service. These are some of the default services which should be running to for your cluster to be available and with no warning. You can, if you want to restart this replica, you can do it. If you want to do something else, if suppose this service is in error state, you can restart all of these replicas. Okay, to make them in the active or remove that warning or error state. So this is how we can see all the applications nodes, and you can control your applications, you can delete your applications, you can restart it, you can fix the node issues, and whatever issues you are having in your Azure Service Fabric cluster, you can do all and everything from here. Okay, so we have covered almost all of the basics which we have in Azure Service Fabric clusters. In further videos of this cluster, we'll explore this in detail. We'll also see how we can integrate this Azure Service Fabric cluster with pipelines that can be Jenkins or Azure pipelines. And we'll also deploy an applications here, and we'll see how we can deploy the applications here in Service Fabric cluster, and how this looks like when applications will be placed inside our cluster. Okay, so that's it from this video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe my channel. If you have any suggestions or feedback, please let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.